shortly. So without further ado, much fun? No. I wish you a lot of pleasure. No. Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel Dutch Greybeard. My name is Ed, and I want to start with a bookshelf tour. The booktubers I watched the most are the fantasy readers, because that is the genre which I am, well, reacquainting myself with since last January. And that's where I want to focus my own channel, on the fantasy genre. However, I've been reading a lot of other genres as well. And this first bookshelf tour I would like to present to you is about the literature I've been reading, and that comprises of fiction, a lot of novels, and non-fiction, hardly any poetry. That's just not my thing. I'm going to make 3 bookshelf tours. The first is literature, of course. The second is going to be my fantasy and science fiction and my mystery and thriller collection. And the third bookshelf tour will be my to be read, my TBR, which is quite extensive, I'm afraid. In this first tour, there will be a lot of Dutch books, and I can imagine that not all of you viewers are very interested in the Dutch readers or the Dutch books. So I'll do my utmost best to go through them very quickly. So without further ado, I wish you a lot of fun with my first bookshelf tour. That's mainly Dutch. So I'll skip through that very quickly. I've got my fantasy and science fiction collection in another room in the apartment, but this is one of the biographies on Isaac Asimov. So this is the only book in this section of the house that's got Isaac Asimov. Here you see my Paul Auster collection. I'm a huge fan of Paul Auster. I've been reading practically everything, if not everything. So that's Paul Auster. Really love him, except for there's a new novel coming up, if I'm not mistaken, and this one, 4321, was a bit of a downer for me, I'm afraid. Apart from that, I love everything Paul Auster has written. Fiction, non-fiction, poetry, you name it. Okay, then we go to one of my interests is the Michael Bagan, Richard Lee thing. This is one of the most famous ones, Holy Blood, Holy Grail. It's about early Christianity. And then we've got some Dutch stuff. Taking a step down, this is much translated, like the letters of Simone de Beauvoir. That's what I've read. This is an interesting book. I'll just briefly mention this one. This is a very interesting and quite impressively thick book by Mathieu van den Berg, Dutch writer. This is the English version about the magical flute, the Magic Flute, the opera by Wolfgang Mozart. And it's a very intricate study about the alchemistic principles that are hidden, well, pretty plainly inside in that opera. Very interesting. Moving down, this is one of my favorite Dutch authors who is not among us anymore, Henk Benelef. And what have we got there? It's Dutch. One of my interests is this. This is about the Blaskit Island, which is west of Ireland, and it's not inhabited anymore. It's been without people, if I'm not mistaken, since 1985 or somewhere around there. But before that, there was a small community of people, Gaelic-speaking people, who really had their own, well, culture and the whole culture is lost. So that intrigues me, lost cultures. Then we've got Dutch books, mainly only Dutch books if I'm not mistaken. Dutch. I'll just skip through these. This is, I have to stop for this master. This is Jeroen Brouwers. I don't know how many books I've got from him, but these are the first. This is a whole shelf. Jeroen Brouwers. He passed away last year, unfortunately. And then up there, my collection of his books is continuing. These are some art books that I didn't have another place for. These are his novels. This is his most famous novel. It's been translated into English, Sunken Red. This is an anniversary edition. I think it's the 50th printing, which is a lot in Dutch. We're a small language group. Anyway, that's Jeroen Brouwers. This is Dutch. Nothing interesting for the English viewers. And here I've got my Edgar Cayce collection. This is not everything. I'll briefly show you my section on the TBR section, which is way too big. But this is everything I've got from Edgar Cayce, or about Edgar Cayce. Okay, that's Dutch. Some English in between, as you may see. Nothing much though. This is an important book, The Divine Comedy. Very small collection of Dickens. Never really got into Dickens somehow. Don't know why. There are so many good writers, authors. This is Dostoevsky, translated into Dutch. This is a very good friend of mine, Pierre Dubois, Dutch writer. Passed away a long time ago already. This is his poetry. Okay, then we've got George Duby, history, Umberto Eco, translated in Dutch. Ralph Ellison. Here is Euripides. How do you say that in English? Euripides? I don't know. And then my William Faulkner, which is, and then Gustave Flaubert, one of my favorite French authors. Especially love his letters. This one, translated as Hate is a Virtue. One of the best, really one of the best. John Fowles. I'm not sure if this is very interesting, but I'll keep at it until I've done this whole literature section. This is Malcolm Gladwell. Don't know if you know him. This is one of his most famous books, Blink, as well as The Tipping Point. He's an amazing writer. It's non-fiction, and he studies, well, human behavior in a way. Like The Tipping Point is an investigation, I put that back later, is an investigation about when the tipping point occurs. When does that happen? Or Blink is like, you know something but you don't know why you know it. There's, for instance, there's an example of a tennis coach who is absolutely sure when somebody's going to hit a double fault in its service. But he cannot tell you what it is he sees, but he knows he's never wrong in there. Very interesting writer. Goethe, interesting. Letters of Vincent van Gogh, the painter, Graham Greene. And what's this? Graham Hancock, one of my favorite investigative writers. Very interesting. This is a very famous Dutch writer, Maarten het Hart. I read everything he publishes. Not everything is absolutely top-notch, but most of it is just very good. Okay. These are the biography of Robert Heinlein. Heinlein's own books are in another department here. This is Willem Frederik Hermans, a Dutch author. Also Willem Frederik Hermans. Susan Hill. I read these very, very long ago, but I can remember that I loved them. This is small part William Horwood, non-fiction William Horwood, and a literary novel. Apart from that, he wrote mainly fantasy about animals, animal fantasy. Here you have Eowyn Yve. This is her most famous book. She is not published very much yet. The Snow Child, absolutely wonderful novel. And then some more Dutch. This is Dutch. Ulysses, I never really got into Joyce. I was always too much impressed by the stories about it, about how difficult it must be. Right. Imre Kertész, Nobel Prize winner. Wonderful books. This is his, where is it? This one. I don't know how you should translate that. Onbepaald door het lot. It's a bit of a strange title, but it's an awesome book. I really cried when I finished reading that. Okay, so that's Krishnamurti. One I really enjoy. This is Dutch, all Dutch. These are books by someone who used to be a friend of mine. He passed away sadly as well. And he wrote in Dutch. This is his... Where is it? I can't see it. Oh, of course, it's so bleached. This is Het Lied van de Houtduif, and he ordered it to be translated, but it never got officially published. So, this is the Song of the Wood Dove, a beautiful novel. It deserves much more attention than it eventually got, which goes for a lot of books. C.S. Lewis. This is one of my interests, the Isle of Lewis and Harris. I've got some books about that. This is a book about the Isle there, a ship that sunk right in front of the harbor. That's history, very interesting. Then one of my favorite American authors who has passed away also recently, Kai Longfellow. This is her absolute wonderful best novel, The Secret Magdalene. Beautiful. Okay. Oh, look at that. That's me. These are my novels. This would translate as The Bridge to Nowhere. Just published October last year. And this one is some time ago already. The Forgotten Muse, 2013. Okay. Thomas Mann. Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Alistair McIntosh. Interesting. There's nothing much to say. Well, there's a lot to say about all of these books, of course, but then this video will be an hour long, which is a bit too much of the good. Okay, that's Kate Moss, thriller writer, mystery writer. Mozart, here you have him. I'm interested in him. Dutch writers. This is my Murakami section. Really love Murakami. I've got some books of him that I haven't read yet, and hopefully we'll get to them one day. Robert Musil. And this is Dutch. Nescio. Nietzsche. This is Dutch. Helena Noltenius. She was a very good writer, Dutch writer. This is Frits van Oostrom. He is a professor in medieval Dutch language, which I was interested in for quite some years. These are mainly Dutch. Connie Palmen, she's Dutch. This is one of my favorite authors, Neil Peart. You may have heard of him. He used to be the drummer of the rock band Rush, the Canadian rock band Rush. But he was also a very gifted writer. The Ghost Rider is his most impressive book, in which he describes how he deals with the loss of the death of his daughter and his wife. Very impressive. These are all letters, books with letters from a Dutch writer, Dutch author who passed away at the beginning of the Second World War. Right, what have we got here? This is Graham Phillips. And this is one of my favorite Jewish authors, Chaim Potok. Beautiful books. They're really beautiful. Up here, this is my Marcel Proust. The entire Marcel Proust. And yes, I've read them, and yes, I love them. Absolutely adore him. Philip Pullman. These are the non-fantasy books he wrote. This is young adult, well, is it young adult? I think it's even children's book. Arthur Ransom, the Arthur Ransom series. Really love those. Had a good time reading those. This is a Dutch author. This is the biography, these 3 volumes here. They're in the wrong order, but anyway. Gerard Reven, Dutch writer who wrote a lot of letters. These are all letter books, his letters. I'm a letter reader, yes. Writer, of course, as well, but a reader. These are his novels. This is perhaps, well, Salman Rushdie. Yes, Joseph Anthon, in which he relates the story of the fatwa. Oliver Sacks. Really love Oliver Sacks. Oh, and this is another Nobel Prize winner. I used to start reading writers who won the Nobel Prize, and some stuck with me, like José Saramago, Portuguese writer. He is unbelievable, his books. And this is more of Saramago. It's all in Dutch, of course. I don't read Portuguese, unfortunately. Jorge Semprún. Shakespeare, can't be missing. This is a Dutch writer, Jan Siebeling. This is my Simenon collection, all in Dutch. The detectives. And I've read them all, and I don't think I can recall anything of them. So, what does that tell you? Then we've got Isaac Bashevis Singer, another Jewish author. He wrote in Yiddish and let it have translated into English. Wonderful books, wonderful books. The biography of Shostakovich, Dmitri Shostakovich, composer, Russian composer. This is the Lemony Snicket series. These are, well, Dutch books. Let's just leave it at that. It's a Stendhal, French author. This is my interest in stone, ancient stone circles, which is one of my other interests. Stonehenge, of course, got another Stonehenge. Anyway, the Incas, really like those books. Nassim Taleb. And then this is a Dutch author, Toon Tellegen. What have we got here? This is mainly Dutch. Barbara Tuchman, Distant Mirror, wonderful history book. Okay, this is Simon Vestdijk, a Dutch author who we always still think should have won the Nobel Prize. But, as you may know, not one Dutch author ever was awarded that prize. So we're still waiting for that. This is Richard Wagner, whom I'm very interested in. These are the Neil Donald Walsh book, Conversations with God. I can highly recommend these. They're spiritual, but they're so profound. This is profound wisdom, absolute profound wisdom. What have we got more here? Oh, this is my favorite, one of my favorites for the last years. This is Raina Wynn. This is her debut, The Salt Path. You may have heard of it. I won't tell you anything. Just look her up, Raina Wynn. She's amazing. Wonderful story. This is a Dutch author I still read. Keep on reading. Paul de Rispolari used to be a friend of mine, passed away a very long time ago. This is Jan Wolkers, another famous Dutch author. These are my Virginia Woolfs. And we're coming to the end of this tour. Carlos Ruiz Zafón, I had all of his books and somehow few, disappeared. Marcus Zusak, I read 3 books of him, but this is an absolute winner, The Book Thief. Wonderful book. Then we've got Belle van Zuilen, and that's the end of the tour. Thank you very much for watching this video, and please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Until we meet again at Dutch Greybeard.